In this video I'm going to show you the power of the UNIX pipeline. The UNIX pipeline is when you connect two or more UNIX commands together. Let's start with an example. I have a file here which is the output of a show interfaces counters command on a Cisco router, so it's a Cisco switch. Now I'm only interested in the fast Ethernet ports, so I can pare the output down using grep, and this time I only get the fast Ethernet ports. I'm only interested in the port names in the first column of output, so I can start to build up a pipeline which is indicated by the vertical bar character here, or pipe character. So what's happening now is two commands are running, the first grep command, and then the output of that command becomes the input into the awk command, and then what appears on the screen will be the output from the awk command. So now we're just getting the fast Ethernet port names and the counters. Now say I'm only interested in counter values which are not 0, so again I can use grep in reverse, and I don't want any lines that end with a space, a 0, and just fix that at the end of the line. And so now we only get the three commands, which are the three lines of output which are of interest. So that's how the pipeline works. Now the pipeline can be a little more interesting because a while back I had a problem where I had to work out what yesterday's date was. Now it's easy enough to work out what today's date is in Unix. You just type the date command and you've got the date. Now working out the previous date is a case of subtracting 1 from the current day of the month, so in this case it's 11, so yesterday's date is the 10th of April. That's all easy. It starts to get tricky if it's the 1st of the month. So if it's the 1st of April, I need to know that the yesterday's date is the 31st of March, so I need to know how many days are in the month March, which is 31. Again, not too difficult, but then we get onto leap years. So then you've got to work out if it's the 1st of March, you have to work out whether yesterday's date is the 28th of February or the 29th. Now, you can write a script with lots of code and things in it to work this out for you, but another way to do this is to do it with is to build a UNIX pipeline. So say I want to work out how many days are in the month of February 1972, because that's the key to the whole issue. If I can work out the number of days in a particular month in a particular year, the rest of the problem becomes easy. So let's take the example of February 1972. We run the cal command like this and it gives us a nice output. This is the bit of information I'm interested in here, the last number on the last line. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use grep again. I'm only interested in lines which have numbers in them. So I start to build up my pipeline. So this is now a pipeline of 2 commands, and this is getting me closer. Next, I'm only interested in the very last line. So if I extend the pipeline, add a third command called tail, and the tail command, when given the option -n1, says throw away all the output except for the very last line. So when I run this, I've now got the very last line of that counter output. And now, from that last line, all I want now is just the last number on that line. And I can use the awk command, and the special invocation, which will always print out the last field, and there we go. So now we've actually got the number of days in the month for that particular month and year. So of course we can change it. How many days in the month are in February 1973? 28. We can obviously run it for different months. We should get a consistent result. 70 this time. So we can see here we've got a useful pipeline that, given any month or year, it will reliably tell us how many days in the month are. And for the case of February, that's particularly useful because the cal command does all of the logic for working out all of the issues with leap years, because it's not so obvious that the February 2000 is a leap year, but that 1900 was not a leap year. So, because you might have been tempted just to take the year and divide by 4, there's a little bit more logic to it. Now, because we can now work out the number of months in a given, the number of days in a given month and year, we can write a handy little script to move dates around. So I've got a script here called backdate, and what it does is it tells me yesterday's date. I can also ask it to tell me yesterday's date, and again I can get it to go 2 days back. So this then becomes interesting if I say, well, if it's the 1st of January in 2000, what's the date before that? Well, it's the 31st of December 1999. A lot of us were partying that night. Okay, we can also go forward, so we can move forward by 7 days. Now, this script it's a simple shell script. It's available for you up on my GitHub page. The particular URL you want to have a look at is there. I'll just leave it on the screen for a little while. But the key takeaway, if you have a look, there's lots of examples on how the command works and how it all is built up, and lots of logic. And there's a little exercise with the reader at the end if you're particularly interested. But the key takeaway is this paragraph here. The thing to learn here is that if an existing command exists and you can solve part or most of your problem, and in this case we've been trying to work out the number of days in a given month and year, then use that command in a pipeline and pull out the required data in a format that you can use. And if you look at the shell script that's online here, read the documentation that's here, and have a play around with it, you should find out that actually UNIX pipelines are actually a very powerful concept and definitely one worth mastering. Thank you again for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this video.